Tonight we get nefarious with Steve Deace. Steve is a conservative Blaze TV host who authored the novel A Nefarious Plot that inspired the film Nefarious.
Oh, I am here with a person I am very excited to be with. His name is Steve Deace. Steve, did I say the last name correctly?
You got it right, man. Thank you.
Oh,
yes.
Perfect. So Steve is someone who, there's a movie I watched called Nefarious, and I've watched it, Steve, I'm not exaggerating. I've watched it like 5 times. Whenever I can't find anything, I can't find anything I'm surfing for, it's late at night. Sometimes I'll put that movie back on because you just learn so much every time you watch it over and over, and you appreciate it even more. And you were a producer on the film, and your book, A Nefarious Plot, was the inspiration for the movie. And what's kind of interesting is A Nefarious Plot is, the movie Nefarious is a prequel to your book, A Nefarious Plot, which is pretty unique. I hadn't heard that before. So, would you mind, I guess first things first, introduce yourself very quickly. I mentioned you as an author, but introduce yourself very quickly to our audience, and then we'll get into the book and the movie.
Sure. I host a daily 2-hour show after Glenn Beck over on The Blaze each weekday. My 14th book is coming out in May, Why Independence Day. So I've done a lot of writing. I produce on average about 240 podcasts a year for The Blaze. I've been involved in political campaigns from local school board all the way to president of the United States on a couple different occasions. So, I kind of, it's weird. I'm a kid born to a 15-year-old mom. I still live in the same West Des Moines suburban home. That's where I'm talking to you from today.
Wow.
Then my kids were raised in, and I've kind of had this odd Walter Mitty-like, Forrest Gump-like experience where I I guess we'll say it randomly, maybe providentially, just ended up in all these situations and scenarios and meeting all these people and famous people and getting to do stuff, writing best-selling books, producing movies, doing a show on a big national platform that a lot of guys born to 15-year-old moms don't get to do, but especially while living in Des Moines, Iowa.
Well, and just throw something out. The producers who produced Nefarious, the writers, producers, did God Is Not Dead. And it's almost like your book is The Devil Is Alive. And did they have, we're going to talk about the supernatural stuff later on. Did they have any experiences on God Is Not Dead? Because your film we'll talk about later, there's a lot of people that were affected.
From a supernatural perspective, no. And they had never experienced anything. In fact, when we began pre-production for this movie, I grew up in a non-Christian home. My Nana, my grandmother, my mom was 15, so my grandmother played a heavy hand in raising me when I was a little kid because my mom was so young. My mom and I literally grew up together. And so she was huge into the occult, horror movies. One of my earliest memories is my mom went out on bowling night with my stepdad, where I got my last name, and my grandmother and I watching the original Salem's Lot on TV. And I can still remember how I felt as a 5-year-old when the vampire comes in through the kitchen floor. One of the great, scenes in 1970s television of that era, And so I was very familiar with every genre of horror, with very much of the occult. I was very much interested in spirituality and mysteries and things of that nature that I inherited from my grandmother. And after I got converted to Christianity, this interest carried over. But now it was more of I'm not interested in a perpetual mystery. Like a modern day Gnostic. I'm more now. I want to know, what are the answers to these things? Are these things real? Are they demonic deceptions? Are they hallucinations? And so I think of podcasts like Blurry Creatures or Haunted Cosmos. I get fascinated by tuning into some of that stuff sometimes that attempts to look at this from an explicitly Christian angle. Because I've always felt like if we are the people of the most successful supernatural work in the history of literature, the Bible. So it never made any sense to me why we wouldn't have something to say about this realm. Now, as I've gotten further into my faith, I don't watch slasher flicks or anything like that anymore. But I am still very interested in horror movies that touch on spiritual themes, because I think you can tell a lot about a culture by what it's scared of, by what frightens it. And the first time I really thought, frankly, it was a horror film that convinced me that I'm going to have to even be more overtly biblical in how I do my show than I even pretended to be or wanted to be, because I went and saw a horror film called Paranormal Activity. Yeah. And I was writing movie reviews for World Net Daily at the time. And so they sent me to go review that film. And as I sat there opening Friday night, packed house, packed theater here in suburban Des Moines, and it was the first time that I can remember watching a major demonic possession film where there's no religious component or answer at all. Wow. And it wasn't, and if you remember in that story, her and her boyfriend, they do Google searches, they talk to her dad, they go to to a local academic on demonology. They go everywhere for answers on what is haunting them, except the one institution that claims it has the answer.
Yeah.
And of course, because they didn't go there, they end up losing to the demon and getting overrun by it at the end of the film. And one of the more, I think, truly frightening closes to a movie I can ever remember. And I walked out of there thinking, okay, if we're at the point now that we're kind of no longer doing secularism, but now we're going to acknowledge there's a supernatural realm, but there is no godly light component to it at all. And so it's just, we're victims of nihilism. This culture is even worse off than I thought that it was. And so that movie did have an impact on me on how I've done my show. I've always been intentionally a biblical worldview guy, but that movie had ever since I saw that film, I think it was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been even more prevalent in what I do. Because I do, like I said before, I just think you can tell a lot about a culture by what frightens it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bible. A lot of people forget that one of the first exorcisms recorded, or the first exorcism recorded, was with Jesus in the Bible, and that there's actually ghosts mentioned in the Bible. People don't, forget that.
Saul goes and seeks the witch of Endor to call up the ghost of the great judge Samuel, right? The Bible doesn't say that's not Samuel. It doesn't say that's some demonic bastardization of it. It doesn't say that at all. And it doesn't say the witch didn't have the power to do that. In fact, the reason why God's people throughout the Bible are told to steer clear of such influences is not because they don't have any power, but because they do. But the source of that power is darkness, and it leads, like you see, ultimately that's the last saddest chapter of Saul's life, and it leads to his tragic ending, not just a few pages later in the Bible. And that's typically where a lot of those sorts of things lead. I think the best horror film made so far this century is Heredity.
Yes.
And I mean, Heredity is just almost a flawless film. Well, what's the storyline of that film? A grief-stricken family seeks out powers of darkness that do have some form of power. And it ends up leading to the unraveling and destruction of that family, to the point that their son now becomes a vessel for bringing forth a high lord of hell. And then what does he say at the end of the movie? That he is here to rebuke the Trinity. He says that right there at the end of the film, right? And so I think that that modern day Christian storytelling, Frank Peretti aside, has done a disservice by making it look like that maybe the battles we do fight are against flesh and blood. Maybe it's just our own hypocrisy. And maybe if I have this tear-filled, Jesus conversion while gazing longingly out a patio window on a sunny day, everything will get better. And no, we're fighting principalities, dark forces in a hidden realm. And I think that we have done a disservice in Christian storytelling in this last generation by not acknowledging that. And so both on my show and then in the novel and then in the movie I produced, I wanted to address that.
Well, I think you did, definitely. And I got to tell you, podcasts are great because I'm the guy that needs to go watch a podcast to explain a movie to me sometimes, because I miss stuff, And there's a lot of podcasts that explain the Bible as well that helps me things that you miss, right? So I think this format is excellent. It's got some, bad people on it, but it's got some very positive things that it does as well. Let's talk about A Nefarious Plot. I think the inspiration came from a voice in your head in the shower, and that voice might not have been yours. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was in Washington, D.C. the first time I've ever visited our nation's capital, where I got the inspiration for the book, because there's no better place to get inspired about a demonic takeover of America than going to Washington, D.C. And I went there to do publicity for my first wide release book I had ever published early in my career. And so I get off the plane, get to my hotel, I hop in the shower, and while I'm in the shower, I hear this voice in my, little voice in the back of my head say, "This book is dedicated to all the useful idiots out there, for especially those of you who had no idea you were being used all this time, for you proved to be the most useful idiots of them all, nefarious." And I thought that is a very weird thing to randomly have pop up in your head in the shower, Yeah. And so I kind of just filed it away in the back of my head. And then DC is a place with lots of temptation and lots of blackmail material. And I'm there with my wife and kids at home. And I'm like, I'm staying in my room and staying out of trouble, And I'm going to sit down on my keyboard here and play around with this a little bit. And I started thinking about it, the screw tape letters. And
Could you explain, Steve, the basic premise of the, it's C.S. Lewis, right? And it's
C.S. Lewis is one of his most famous works. He wrote it in, for the Brits anyway, the heights of World War II. The Americans had just gotten in, but were not really organized yet as a fighting force. Hitler is 10 minutes away from adding the UK to his empire. He has spent over a year and a half now bombing the Brits on an almost nightly basis into smithereens to try to break them down. And it's in the midst of this that C.S. Lewis writes his book, The Screwtape Letters, and read it as an audio drama first on the BBC. And it's a book about, it's a hidden manuscript that has been leaked, where a senior tempter from hell named Uncle Screwtape is mentoring a young demon named Wormwood on how to take down individual people with their deceptions. And so in the midst of a grand world war, Lewis brings the fight between good and evil down to the granular level, mano y mano, soul to soul, right?
Yep.
Well, I thought, what if now we actually go take it now back up here to the meta, and instead of a demonic manuscript that describes the takedown of how we're taken down as individuals, what about the takedown of an entire culture? And so I thought about, let's make Nefarious a high lord of hell who has been tasked by the devil with the destruction of the United States of America. And he's going to reveal his plan, but not kind of in the handlebar mustached villain. Okay, now that I've got you, let me tell you my plan. No, the plan is successful. It's already been enacted. It's already been implemented. He listened to Seth Green and Austin Powers. Just shoot him. Just shoot him. Don't just stop talking and just shoot him. He doesn't. He's not going to tell you what he's going to do. He's already done it. It's already over. And he needs to convince his master, the devil, that he's been successful. And so the way that he will do that is to put it all in writing under his own name and put it out in the open. And America will be so far gone, it won't take it seriously. And that's how he'll convince his master, the devil, that he succeeded in his mission. And so I started writing the introduction, and that introduction to this ended up being about 90% of what was made into the final book. And I called two theologian friends of mine, one charismatic and one reformed, because I wanted two different perspectives on this. And to both of them, I said, hey, I'm not going to tell you what this is. I'm just going to read it to you, right? And then don't interrupt. And when we get to the end, tell me what you think.
Wow.
And I read it to each of them, the introductions, and they were both blown away by it. And they both thought that this is something, especially once I told them what I intended to do, that could be fleshed out into, an important work. And I normally write pretty fast. This book took me a full year to write. And it's because I had to take weeks, if not months, away from the character at a time.
Yeah, I was going to ask a quick question. The making of the film had a lot of nefarious things going on even afterward. Did anything affect you while you were writing?
Oh, definitely. Book? I mean, I had to stop writing it at night. And that's normally my time. My show's during the day. At night is when I have time.
Yeah.
And so I just could not go to bed and have this be the last thing, is trying to, because I need this to be an external character, not an anti-hero extension of my own personality.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you dance with the devil don't change. He changes you. You stare in the abyss long enough, that sucker will start staring back at you. And so, and then I really struggled with how to end it. I'm fine with how dark the material is if it's redemptive at the end.
Yeah.
But I couldn't come up with a way to have a book written by a demon where he destroyed my country be redemptive at the end. And I even contemplated getting some major ministry people I know to write like an afterword, some kind of cop out. And then finally my wife is like, "Hey, is the book written by a demon?" And I said, "Yeah." Then she said, "Then it should end like a book written by a demon." Wow. And so that's why the last words of the book are mene tekel upharsin, which is right out of the Bible from the book of Daniel, the words in Farsi that are written on the wall by the hand of God to the ruler of Persia. "You have been weighed, measured, and found wanting." And that's why the final words that Nefarious speaks in the film as a character as he sits there in the electric chair, same words. That's the last time Sean speaks in the film, is when he says mene tekel upharsin. Okay.
And when you say Sean, you mean Sean Flaherty?
Sean Patrick Flannery, who played our demon in the film.
Amazing actor. Yeah, that is incredible. Unlike the Screw Tape Letters, which has like a happy ending because he fails and the demons eat wormwood, I think, or something.
Yep.
You're realistic. It's kind of like where we're at. We're at a flashpoint right now, and kind of. Have you ever seen the movie The Cleansing? By the way.
The Cleansing. I've seen The Cleansing Hour, but I haven't seen The Cleansing.
Cleansing Hour probably is it. Yeah, that's the movie that was on like Shudder that has kind of that same thing where it takes place in a studio, and at the end, everyone that's watched.
So the filmmaker that made that, Damien Levesque, is a good friend of mine.
Okay, wow.
And I love that movie.
That's a great movie. I loved it too. I was surprised. I was like, okay, but then it just totally grabbed me in the end. I thought it was brilliant. It was brilliant. What was it like once you had the book written? It got funding very quick. You want to talk about how you got contacted and how funding for the film came, like almost like it's preordained.
The book came out in March of 2016, and my national show was pretty new still and kind of had a modest audience. And I think we sold about 5,500 copies, not great, but not terrible. Yeah. And I thought, well, okay, that was a nice little exercise, and moved on with, what I was doing next. And then about 5 months later, out of the blue, I got a call from Glenn Beck. And I did not know Glenn Beck yet. I was not working with the Blaze yet. And he called me and said, "Hey, a mutual friend of ours gave me your book, and it just blew my mind. I'd love to have you on my show to talk about it." So I came on that Friday. He was going to have me on for a segment, ended up being the entire hour. And we went through the book and where it came from and some of the things it points out about where we are in history. And listening to that interview that day was a guy named Chris Jones, who's driving to work in Burbank, California. And he's just formed an independent production company with two guys, Kerry Solomon and Chuck Conselman, who had written the script for God's Not Dead, which was the film that made Pure Flick Studios, basically. And they wanted to do a little bit more serious material from a Christian perspective. They had just signed a deal with Abby Johnson for her Planned Parenthood memoir, and they were in pre-production for that film. And so they were looking for like really good material. And Chris got to the office before them that day and got my book on Kindle after hearing me talk about it on Beck, and just couldn't put it down. And so when the guys came in that afternoon from location scouting and stuff, he said, "Hey, I think I've got our next movie after this one. Just pick a page number out of this book, any random page number." And one of the guys picked the page number, and Chris read that page, and they're like, "That could be a movie."
Wow.
And so that night, I'm down here in this basement, actually. And my kids were still little at the time. I put them to bed. My wife's at a church retreat, and I just fired up the Madden to wind down, some me time. And I get an alert on my phone of an email, and I open it up, and it says, "Hey, we want to buy the movie rights to your book." And I thought, man, Nigerian print scams are getting really specific nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought it was a joke, a troll. I deleted it, went back to playing Madden, and that little voice in the back of my head said, you might want to take a look at that, you know? And so I did a little Google search to find out that these names were legit names. And it was a legit offer. And we ended up signing the deal at Christmas. The next year, Christmas of 2017, is when we signed the deal for it. And then they went off and did Unplanned, the Abby Johnson work. And then it was, we started pre-production for Nefarious, right? And I think I was going to say this earlier and I forgot. Right as we were starting pre-production for Nefarious, because I watched all these horror films growing up, and to this day, I still think The Omen, the original Omen, is one of the greatest films I think literally ever made. Not just the greatest horror films ever made, one of the greatest movies ever made. And a lot of people don't know that movie is actually what inspired George Lucas with licensing. That was the first movie. So Jaws comes out in 75. That kicks off the summer movie season. The Omen comes out in the first kind of traditional summer movie blockbuster. And then The Omen came out for 76. And Warner Brothers wanted to capitalize on the success of The Exorcist. And so that was the first time that a year advance publicity for a film was done. And in every major bookstore in America, Warner Brothers put a sign with the creepy kid, and it said, "The world ends 6/6/76." The movie came out June 6, 1976. And so Lucas saw Warner Brothers doing all of this, he saw 20th Century Fox doing all of this. And that's when he went to the studio and said, "Tell you what, you guys can keep all the tickets. I want the licensing, the merchandising." And that's essentially what inspired Lucas to do that, and funded what became his film empire. And so I've watched all the making of these movies. I kind of knew the backstory of the plane crashes and everything else that went on in the filming of this and The Exorcist. And so I went and found these DVD special features on YouTube, and I sent them off to my filmmakers. And I said, "Hey, this is not a world you guys are accustomed to. You guys are from the PureFlix world. Things are about to get wonky. You might want to watch a couple of these." Now, I meant this somewhat half tongue-in-cheek. I had no idea that this was actually going to be what occurred. I ended up raising the money for the film. We started pre-production in June of 2020 when Gavin Newsom first opened California. I flew out there to Burbank to meet with the guys. We storyboarded the film over the next 4 days. And then I went about raising the money for the film. They took our storyboards and then took the next 9 months putting the formal script for the film together, while I went out and raised the money and everything else. And then we were going to start filming the movie. We were doing set construction and stuff in Oklahoma City. And both of my directors in their 60s got Delta variant COVID pneumonia and were nearly and had to be hospitalized and nearly died.
Wow.
And so then I had to go get another $1 million to secure our sets and stuff before the deadline. Other productions were waiting for this soundstage to take our place. And so we were going to start filming the movie in August of 2020. We had already done some casting conversation. And I won't tell you who it was. We actually had an Academy Award nominated actor agree to play Nefarious, provided he could have final say on the script. The first thing he wanted to do was get rid of the abortion scene. And I said, no way. As the executive producer, no way. Yeah. If we start making these compromises now, it'll be nothing like the film we intended to make by the time we're done. Yep. And so now my guys, though, our sets are constructed, but we're not doing anything. And I'm not sure my directors are even going to get out of the hospital. They got out at the end of October. And we've got a deadline. We've got to be out of this space by the start of the SAG Christmas calendar, which was December 23rd, I believe. Otherwise, we lose.
About the space. Yep. The space is kind of what you shot with, the main part of the movie. But there was also a penitentiary that was probably.
We filmed on site. That's right. We were the first film ever to shoot on site at a prison, an active prison in Oklahoma. It never happened before.
I was going to say that must be very difficult to get clearance on. Yeah.
And that was a medium security prison, so there's like legit criminals in there.
Yeah. And
a funny thing happened when we went to shoot there. Is we were experimenting with some drone cameras and some other stuff. Stuff never happens on time. You never keep to the minute schedule. And so by the time we got to filming Sean's perp walk to the electric chair, and we had some rain coming in, we thought this is going to add to the atmosphere. So let's wait till it starts raining, And so by the time it's raining and everything, and we're filming the scene with James and the warden, and then Sean's perp walk, well, there's been a shift change, and the overnight warden is in. And he doesn't know that we are still there. He was told that we would be out of there before he came in. All right. And so when we start staging this perp walk of Sean in an orange jumpsuit with security guards, the alarm gets sounded, thinking something's wrong, someone's trying to escape. The whole thing goes on lockdown, okay, because the overnight warden doesn't know what we're doing. This was just one of many situations. And this can be I don't know if anybody's been in a prison. All right, now I was not there for these filming days, but I heard about it. This is an active prison. There are rapists in this prison. There are drug dealers in this prison. When we said it's a lockdown, it is a lockdown, right? Okay. Guards with guns, billy clubs, they're ready to do their jobs. And my guys are just sitting there like, just filming a movie here. Okay? All right. You know? So, but most of the scenes that most people remember were filmed on a massive soundstage in downtown Oklahoma City where the Thunder used to play. And we rented that facility out. They shot the movie Reagan there. And then the second production to get into that soundstage was us after that movie.
And wasn't there a huge accident or weather thing that tore off the roof on that facility?
That happened, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first day we went to filming in downtown Oklahoma City, and now I'm getting ready to come from Des Moines with my family to watch the movie the rest of the movie get filmed. And my directors call me in a panic. Hey, we're done here. We can't make the movie. I'm like, what is going on? All right. Our lead cinematographer. So Oklahoma is a right to work state.
Yep.
My directors, their previous movie was a non-union production, but they always pay better than union scale of the workers. They just don't want to pay a bunch of left-wing communist unions grift. We paid people very, very well. So our chief cinematographer organized a strike against our film to try to use our movie to organize a union. And IATSE, the stage union, you know, these are the cinematographers, the key grips, the people that actually make your movie.
Yep.
That they wanted to make an example out of our film. They didn't want it to be the Reagan film because I think obviously there's political connotations there. So they had no idea who I was or anything. Probably just looked at our budget and thought we were an easy target and thought, all right, we don't want to set an example now that everybody can come to Oklahoma and make a non-union film without, grease in our palms. So they staged a strike. 75% of our crew walks out. And we have no means by which to make this film. So IATSE picked the wrong independent film to do this with, okay? Most movies with a $3 million budget doesn't have someone as politically connected as I am as your executive producer, Yeah. And so I just so happen to know high-ranking members of the Oklahoma State government, like the Secretary of Education and others, all right? So I got on the phone with those guys. I told my directors, I said, we will be making this film. Let me do my job. And so I got on the phone to the people I know politically, eventually got the Attorney General of the state to issue a public letter to any members of the crew that crossed the picket line. I'll defend you in court if the unions try to come after you, blacklist you. We got just enough of our crew, and I mean just enough of our crew, to cross the line and film the movie. Our cinematographer was the understudy of the cinematographer, had never made a movie before, only documentaries. We were under constant threat that they were going to get a Biden-friendly federal judge, to put an injunction on our film. And so much of the movie you see, like the assembly cut of our film, the totality of everything you filmed, is like barely 2 hours.
Wow.
Many of the scenes you see in this movie were done in 2 takes tops, because we got to get done. And at the same time, we've got this deadline of, we started shooting, all right, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and we've got to be done by December 23rd. We're already going to lose our sets if we're not. And then we're threatened with this idea that an injunction we would probably beat, but that would take weeks or months to beat. We ended up actually beating IATSE in the labor union court. The Biden magistrate judge actually ruled in our favor, if you can believe that. Okay. Wow. But that didn't happen for another year. And so we were under a constant threat that this movie was never going to get made. My crew was making the film on one end of the soundstage in this massive arena. Every day I'm on the other side of the arena, literally yelling at politicians to do their job to make sure we can make our film. Okay. So that's just one of many challenges.
Supernatural. But Steve, I got to tell you, I made one small film and then a documentary. You work much harder than any executive producer I've ever. Usually that credit's like, oh, they gave money or something, But you've like worked your tail off, and plus you had some health impacts, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So you really paid the rent for this one. So
and then we had numerous spiritual issues while making the film. One of the things that occurred is my directors, very, very devout, charismatic Catholics, and they have a lifelong friend who's a Vatican exorcist certified priest who goes with them wherever they go. Great guy. He was on set with us every day, blessing the set and everything else. And they're all in this Uber together, or in this Verbo together, staying together, right?
Yeah.
And so they wake up one night and there's a massive commotion in their house. And it sounds like an animal has gotten in, and they're thinking, you know what? We did the Bachelor thing, left all the pizza boxes and everything out,
Yeah.
And then we got all the windows open. It's kind of warm here. And an animal just got in to get our trash, kind of our bad, right? So they go downstairs to get rid of the animal, and they realize that the animal's not downstairs, and none of the pizza boxes or anything they've left out have been touched. And so they now hear this massive commotion upstairs. They go upstairs. And in one of the bedrooms of this Verbo, they had set up an altar with their priests so they could do the mass every morning before they came to the set to film. And so this squirrel got into their house, left all the food, everything else completely alone. Went right up into the room where they were doing the mass every morning, turned over, desecrated all the idols, the entire altar, urinated and defecated all over it. And then left the house. Absolute true story.
And also there were a ton of not a ton, but there were many car accidents.
There were numerous car accidents. Numerous.
Nobody died, right?
And nobody died.
Yeah.
The Chris Jones I mentioned to you before, he called me one afternoon, the week after the movie came out, and he's with his kid in Costco, and he noticed as he's in the parking lot that his son unbuckled his car seat. And so he bends back into the car to rebuckle the car seat. And out of nowhere, this car comes down that parking lot, takes the door of his car off because he had it open to buckle his kid in, and takes the door of his car off and misses him by inches. And he's like, if I did not bend back down to put my kid's car seat back on, I'd be dead right now. Right.
Oh my God.
The next day, one of our other producers, John Sullivan, calls me. He's like, you're not going to believe this. My car was parked outside. I hear this. I'm getting ready to get up and go to work in the morning. I hear this mass. He lives in LA. So a lot of times there's no driveways and people are parked in the street, right? Okay. In front of their house.
Yeah.
There's this massive commotion outside and I hear this loud crash. I look outside. It's my car. And I run outside and I ask the cops what happened. He goes, you're not going to believe this. Somehow this nursing student was driving through your street, residential area, fell asleep, crashed into your car, totaled your car.
Whew.
And
that
a few minutes later, he might have been in that car going to work or on his way there. Who knows?
Yeah.
So those kinds of stories we heard quite a bit.
Now there was a priest. Was it Father Carlos Martin? That
Yes.
had some interesting experiences. Do you mind talking? Oh, before we get to that, the gentleman who wrote the script, they're from like New Jersey or something, and they're like, "Wow, this script, we did it, but it wasn't us. Something kind of like fueled us to write this." Is that accurate?
Whenever you hear Christians talk about spiritual warfare today, a lot of times it is from the perspective of things being done by darkness to them. I will tell your audience the most faith, other than having and raising kids, the most faith challenging and rewarding experience I've had in my life is the making of this film.
Mm.
Because if you're just getting picked on, that's not a spiritual war. That's just a spiritual bullying.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw God open up doors we could have never opened on our own, made things happen we could have never made happen on our own, gave us inspirations we would have never simply had on our own. And I'll give your audience one example because it's maybe my favorite example of how God made this movie happen. And so we get done with principal photography in February of 22. And the last scenes we shot were the very beginning, where James's mentor commits suicide at the beginning. Those are the last scenes we shot there. They were, and then the interview with Beck. Those were shot in Dallas in the winter of 22. So we get done around February of 22, and my filmmakers are like, probably 6 to 8 weeks until we get you a rough cut to see if, you like where we're going, and we'll talk about, where we are from there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go back to just do my show and get back to normal. And about 6 weeks later, I get an email out of the blue in the middle of my show during a commercial break from a guy named Brian Jeremiah Smith. And he says, hey man, love your show. Never miss an episode. I've been waiting years. I love this book. I've been waiting years for this movie to finally get made. I cannot wait to see it. It's probably too late. You're probably too far into post production, but just in case, here's my resume. And, if I can be of any assistance, man, I work for Netflix. I'm the only editor at Netflix that did not take the jab, and they were going to fire me. But then the Supreme Court overturned the Biden jab mandate, and now they can't. But they don't know what to do with me because they don't want to reward me for defying them. So they just put me on indefinite paid leave. So I've got free time. If I can help, let me know. Wow. And I opened up this guy's resume, and he worked on like Get Out. He worked on The Haunting of Hill House. One of the editors for that for Netflix. He was supposed to be one of their editors for The House of Usher, but that's when they took him off because he wouldn't take the jab. He worked on Dr. Sleep, the Shining sequel. So, this guy has worked in a lot of major productions in this very genre. I'm like, snap, man. I wish I'd have known this guy existed 6 months ago. We could have used him, So I sent his information off to my filmmakers. I'm like, yeah, I know it's too late now, but maybe this might be a good contact for you guys for future projects, And I go back to do my show. And then the next commercial break, I look and I've got an email from one of my filmmakers. And he's like, yeah, funny timing here because the first editor we hired, and we hired a guy, the only editor in Oklahoma, because everything we did in Oklahoma was for the tax credit.
Yep. And
this guy turned in a rough cut that's so bad, we're pretty sure the movie is ruined, can never be released, and we don't want to show it to you. So on the off chance that this guy could save our film, we're going to call this guy like today. I was like, okay.
I was thinking you only had a couple takes on most of the on most of the shows, and then I thought the finished product was so tight, was so well edited, without even being prompted
our
on
filmmakers would credit Brian for a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so I like the analogy I always give so they go meet with Brian, and Brian is available, but this is a top end editor for the number one streaming service at the time in the world. And we can't afford him with the budget that we have left. We're almost down to pennies to get it this far.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, don't worry about it. Netflix is paying me. Wow. So you guys pay me what you can, but man, I'm getting paid well by Netflix. I got the time. Let's do this. And, if Carrie and Chuck were here, they would agree with me that Brian basically saved our movie. We called Mariano Rivera out of the bullpen. The bases were loaded. Nobody was out, and we're only up by one run.
You had to
we can't even afford a sac fly because that'll bring the tying run in. Okay.
Yeah.
We need him to strike out the side. Just throw that famous cutter, strike everybody out. Okay. That's what Brian did. And Brian found test footage. Like when you guys see the scenes, the cutaway scenes with the birds, right? Okay. That's test footage. That's not footage for the film. He literally took all our test footage, everything to come up with transitions, to help the pacing and stuff of the film. He saved it. That's what he did. He came out of the bullpen in the ninth inning and saved it, and struck out the side. And we would not be here today. Pardon me. We would not be here today without Brian. We had no idea this guy even existed, had our belief system, let alone, the amount of people that know this genre and have our belief system is not immense. And so that was just simply a door that God opened right when we needed it and dropped it right in our lap.
Did he have anything kind of diabolical happen while he was editing? Any equipment problems? Or
he really didn't. The rest of us did. Brian got off scot-free. All right. So apparently the Lord said, you're suffering enough for the low rate they can pay you to do all this.
Right.
Okay? All right. We're going to make everybody else go through the suffering that you are exempted from. All right. And so Brian ended up moving his wish was to take him and his wife had a young family and about to have another baby. And his hope was to get him out of LA and to Georgia and friendlier territory. And that's where they live now. And he's a very busy man. and just an overall pretty cool dude.
All right, so let's talk about Father Carlos Martin pretty quickly. What happened to him? And then I want to talk about what happened to you when the golf ball size cyst that you had, and then we'll close out with a couple quick questions, okay? So let's talk about Father Carlos Martin, if you don't mind.
So Father Carlos hosts a very popular podcast called The Exorcist Files. He's considered among the leading, kind of in the Father Ripperger class of the leading exorcist in all of Rome. I'm an evangelical, but I was very aware of his work. And Carrie and Chuck, he's almost a heroic figure to my filmmakers. So, there was definitely some consultation with him about, we want to make this real. Like, what is this really like? I mean, we want to make the evil real, not a cartoon, but real. And Father Carlos loved our final film so much, he agreed to come to the premiere, and he gave the invocation at the beginning of the premiere. Well, that morning is when we decided we were going to film all the special features for the DVD release later in the year, and get into one of the special features specifically gets into all the spiritual warfare and all the various issues we had and challenges to make this film. The problem was, for hours, we could not get our equipment to work. We would start, it wouldn't work. We think it would be good for 20 minutes, and it would die on us. And we're running out of time. And one of my filmmakers said, you know what? Father Carlos is just sitting in his room right now, just maxing and relaxing, waiting for the premiere tonight. Let's call in the heavy artillery here, and let's see what we got, And so Father Carlos walks in, and like right away, he's like, something's not right. And he's like, there is, and he points to one of the walls, and he says, there, behind that wall, there is a persistent voice and whisper that is essentially cursing your efforts. And he goes through this like cleansing ritual and liturgy right there in this hotel room where we're filming all this stuff. And then shortly after he's done, we start filming again, and everything worked. The rest of the time, we got it all done. Wow. I saw these things with my own eyes. I was there for these things. I saw them. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you experienced some things health-wise too. Can you just quickly cover what happened to you? And what was the timing? Was it right before the premiere or something?
It was right after. Right after. And I get back from, we had our premiere in Dallas, and so that the executives at Cinemark could come, because they were instrumental in making our theatrical release happen, because they really believed in the movie. And when I got back, I started noticing my armpit was just itching really bad. But, I did the whole guy, Jesse Ventura, ain't got time to bleed thing. And maybe I've just been too aggressive with the deodorant. I'm just going to let it go, And a couple nights later, I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm in so much pain. I can't even sleep. I can't put my arm down, And as soon as the urgent care clinic opens that morning, I go in right away. And the guy's like, well, the doctor says there's two options of what's wrong with you. One is that you did overdo it on the deodorant, and the other is something you don't even want to contemplate. So he goes, I'm going to give you a quick little, anti-inflammatory shot right in the rear end, like a cortisone shot. And in the hopes that that's going to work. Because if that doesn't work, then we're talking about something that you don't want to talk about. Mm. So I felt instantly better after the shot, went and did my show. And then as I got home and as the rest of the afternoon went on, I am feeling even worse than I was before. And now the pain is essentially overwhelming. I'm having a hard time staying conscious. And my wife rushes me to the ER that night. I essentially slip into, the stage of unconsciousness before you're into a coma, essentially, like a form of delirium. My temperature and everything is off the charts. And it turned out it was the other thing. And that I had a severe, life-threatening MRSA infection of a, quote, unknown origin. And said that in my chart. And the kind of thing that maybe if I would have addressed it 3 days prior, maybe one or two really crappy shots and a dose of doxycycline would have fixed it. But because I let it go, because I've got too many things. I'm just too important to go to the doctor, of course.
Yeah.
I let it go to the point that it was one step from sepsis getting into my bloodstream. And so they had to operate right there in the ER. They had to put me under, because they had to open up my armpit and literally take a spoon and scoop this bacteria out of my armpit.
Wow.
And I thought I was, and then so I felt so much better the next day, but I had to go to my doctor for post-op evaluation 48 hours later. And by that time, I'm feeling really good and a lot of the swelling has gone down. And so I'm thinking I'm good. I made it, right? And he goes, I have some very, very bad news for you. I said, oh no. He said, well, now that the swelling has gone down, they would have not been able to see this before because the swelling was too prevalent. But now that the swelling has gone down, the bacteria actually dug a series of like paths in your armpit. There's at least two other infection planes in that armpit. And that if I don't take them out right now, we're going to go through this all over again. And this time it might kill you again. And he goes, I got even worse news for you. This is the most painful procedure we do without putting somebody under.
Why can't they put you under? Is it just
I don't know. He explained it, but I can't remember why he said this.
Yeah. That's okay. It's just a matter of it goes with the story where the devil wants to give you as much pain as possible.
Yes, anyway, and it worked. And I mean, the amount of screaming that hallway at that urgent care clinic heard, where my doctor's office is. All right, and words that I didn't know I knew anymore. Okay, and I had to go back and do this 3 days in a row.
Wow. Oh my God.
Okay, and so the thing was, he's like, a lot of doctors won't even give you a local because there's a decent chance it won't, that the nerves are so shot from the bacteria, it won't numb it anyway. Yeah. And so a lot of doctors won't give you a shot because they don't want to cause you twice the pain by putting a needle in you that won't work and then doing it anyway, So it was like I was in a Civil War era field hospital. They literally gave me something leather to bite down on. And they didn't ask me if I wanted any whiskey. All right. Like, you need to bite down on this.
The only thing that would have been worse is if your doctor was called Dr. Payne or Dr. Damien or something like that. And
yes.
So.
And then they give you, there's only one grade of antibiotic that when MRSA gets to the sepsis point will kill it. And it's called like a nuclear level antibiotic or something. I can't remember. Most people cannot tolerate it orally. And so they have to stay in the hospital for the full 10 days of the course because you can only get it intravenously. So because I'm stubborn, he agreed to let me have 24 hours to see if I could tolerate it. And if I could, then they'd go ahead and just let me work and take it orally. And I could take it, actually. I was fine with it. So I get down to the last 2 days of the antibiotic course and I go for my final checkup and he's like, dude, you're looking great. It's healing. You're good. Well, I mean, we're going to take the patches out. I got okayed to go do this speaking engagement in New York I had scheduled for the last year. And I fly out there and my wife, as I'm flying out there, I'm like getting really warm and hot and stuffy. And I'm thinking, oh man, what a terrible time for my annual sinus infection. It is spring. That night I wake up and my wife says to me, honey, relax. The ambulance will be here in a minute. I'm like, what? And I turn around, there's like this puddle of sweat behind me in my head. She goes, baby, your temperature is 105. Wow. And I checked it 3 times. The ambulance will be here in a second. You are delirious again. Well, what happened now is now that the meds had killed off the MRSA, they're now attacking my immune system. And I'm having another death-defying reaction to the meds. The problem is, though, because my MRSA was so recent, they couldn't automatically do that because they had to make sure I wasn't sepsis because I could be contagious. And then that's like a Center for Disease Control, quarantine level event. Oh, yeah. So they have to keep pumping these meds into me until the bacteria sample comes back, the blood sample to show that the bacteria is gone. So I'm still being fed this allergic, this medicine that I have this allergic reaction to at the exact same time in this hospital in New York. So it's a race to see which one of these two things is going to kill me first, the MRSA or the med. And but I'll tell you what, I won't take that event back for anything. I had an incredible prophetic event with the Lord that night that changed my life the rest of the way that I'll never forget. And I think the Lord put me in that situation knowing that I would just think I'm too busy and too important. How do you shut me up? All right. That did it. Okay. And that made me available to hear what the Lord had to say to me that night.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I have one last question, if you don't mind, and thank you for your time for taking with me. So if Lord Nefarious had to do like a progress report, your book was written 8 years ago, right? If Lord Nefarious had to like get in front of the devil right now and give him a progress report based on how things are going, what do you think it'd say?
See, I told you so.
Yeah.
Is what I think he would say. And I had some hopes that this last election would be at least a giant speed bump. And I think last year was a tremendous first year. But I think you're seeing now between the courts, between the do nothing Congress, not to mention, the president is a person. The White House is full of people. People make mistakes, make errors. It sort of feels like we've lost a lot of the momentum that we thought we had suddenly captured in that election and afterwards. And even when we win, we're still arguing on on his terms.
Yeah.
So I think he would say, "See, I told you so." Sadly, and I hate saying that, but that's what I think he would say.
Where can people follow you? Your podcast and your next book that you're writing, Independence Day. Give us a quick blurb about that before we sign off.
Sure. Easiest thing to do, and everything I catalog is on my X feed at Steve Deace Show, DEACE, at Steve Deace Show on X.
Perfect. All right, Steve, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. I appreciate your work on Nefarious in the book, A Nefarious Plot. What a tremendous film. I'm not exaggerating. I've watched it 5 times. I'll probably watch another 4 or 5 more times when nothing else is good on TV. Such a tremendous job. Appreciate all you do and all that you've been through.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you. God bless.